How have we been today, everybody? How are we feeling now? Are we tired? The afternoon slump. Okay, so let's get out of the afternoon slump. I'm going to shake you guys. I want everybody to stand up. All right, everybody copy me. Hands up in the air. Big stretch. Up on your tippy toes. And go. I just wanted to do that for me. That wasn't for you to loosen up. I just wanted to do that. Okay, everybody sitting down. Can you believe it? It's only 124 days until Christmas. Hey? It felt like it was just the other day, but I thought Boxing Day was yesterday. What do you want for Christmas, miss? More shoes. Excellent. Yeah. What would you like? A pony? She wants a pony. How good is that feeling when you wake up Christmas morning and there's that present you've always wanted sitting under the tree? It's the best feeling ever, right? So my name is Seamus Evans, and I'm going to tell you how I turned my flaw into a superpower. My flaw into a superpower. My flaw into a... 10 points for you and a gold star. Good work. No detentions for you, miss. And I did this through acceptance, passion, and determination. Those 3 core pillars. Now, I want you to think to yourself, who do you know that is faced with adversity? Now, adversity is a difficult time or period, a difficult situation, a stressful time. Who is it that is faced with adversity that you know? It could be something that they were born with, something that they had been diagnosed with, something that happened to them growing up, a large, dramatic, life-changing event. It could be your neighbour, could be the person sitting next to you, or it could even be you. My adversity, my flaw, my setback is Tourette Syndrome. Now, does anyone know what Tourette Syndrome is? All right, I'm going to come down here. Oh, geez, the knees, I've felt it before. Who put up their hand? Was it you? Can you, okay, say that again. Oh, now that she's got a microphone near her, she doesn't want to say it. Cursing. Okay, here we go.
You say fuck with no resistance.
Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, geez, I've got to get up here now. I did that at a school last year, and I said, who knows what Tourette? I ran into, it was a grade 5, he put his hand up, and I said, what is it, mate? And he goes, my sister has it. It's when you've got a mental condition, and my parents keep fighting over it, and I think my dad doesn't believe it, and mum doesn't leave the room. I was like, whoa, okay. Thanks, buddy. Close. Tourette syndrome is a neurological condition made up of tics, both motor and vocal tics. You must have both motor and vocal to be classified as Tourette syndrome. Now it is, yes, the famous Tourette syndrome is famous for the swearing. Now only 10% of the population who have Tourette syndrome have what's called coprolalia, which is the profanity tic. Now 1 in 100 kids have Tourette's. 1 in 200 adults have Tourette's. Now there's 600 people here. Statistically speaking, I'm not the only one. Statistically, it is more common in males than it is in females. However, there's a lot of controversy around that statistic because females are better at masking it. So when it comes time for them to be tested, they can disguise it a lot better than males, so it doesn't show up. And we think that's the same with adults in that 1 in 200. Because let me tell you, there is no cure for Tourette syndrome. In fact, when I was diagnosed at the age of 10, the doctor said, Seamus, by the time you're around 18 to 21, your Tourette's will disappear. Now, 2 days before I turned 18, yes, 2 more sleeps and I don't have Tourette's. Still had Tourette's. Then I was about to turn 21. Yes, 1 more sleep and I don't have Tourette's. I'm 32. Now, the best way to describe a tic, It's like having an itch on your arm, right? And subconsciously, you'll just scratch that itch. And someone next to you go, oh, you scratch your arm, mate. Oh, I didn't even realize. It's that same feeling. What happens is everybody's brain self-regulates itself by firing off signals to the body, just to keep alive, like a piston in an engine. But everybody's brain has a gate to stop those unwanted signals from firing through. People with Tourette's have a weak or no gate, so those signals fire through. Now, one of the best things about having a tic is when you do the tic and you get it just right. It's like, you know when you put a cotton bud in your ear and you're like, oh. It's that feeling. Trust me. Now, I have so many tics. Who wants to see my tics? Okay, that one person. So everybody, if you want to stand and leave, and I'll just show you my tics. Notice the yes on the end there. Okay, I'm going to ask again. By the way, I need enthusiasm and everybody go, yeah. Okay, that's how we're playing this. Who wants to see my tics? Oh, I love it. Okay, what we're going to do collectively, right, I'm going to stand here. Oh, we've got the camera. Oh, he's good. Okay, I'm going to stand here. Oh, gee. No, I'm going to stand here and I'm going to show you each individual tic. And I need everybody collectively to count. 1, 2, 3. Now, I did this at Mansfield State High today to the grade 9ers, and they did it perfectly. So, can we? Yes. Beautiful. Okay, are you ready? Yes. Mum, man, eh? Okay, about that. Now, what did we get up to? 16? Okay, this one. That one, I love that one. That's hilarious. That started when I was training for a marathon. And I was doing so much running. And what happens when you run, you get a nipple rash. And I had this, like, oh, it just hurts. So I thought, you know what, I'll take my shirt, I'll run without a shirt on. But that became a tic. And because that good feeling like a cotton bud, I was running down the street like this. Oh. Oh. And everyone's like, ah, someone call the police. Or I love, this one's one of my favorites. This head nod. Because I walk down the street. And people walking towards me, they think I'm saying hello to them. But I don't want to be a weirdo and be like, no, I don't know you. I've got Tourette's. I don't know you. That would be weird. So I just pretend I know them. G'day, Barry, you well? Say hi to the kids for me. Okay, hooroo. You know when you catch an aeroplane or you go to a movie and there's always that armrest and you're like, whose armrest is it? And there's always a battle? Having Tourette's is so good. Because I win that battle every time. And the guy next to me goes, what are you doing? And I go, he's like, ah! I remember, actually this one, that one's a new tic, a relatively new tic, right? I had that when I was like 16 and it's only come back. And it's a funny tic because if you don't see my lips, and I was at a cafe the other day, and I was waiting to have a meeting, and I saw this group of people next to me, and they were like a little like the next table over, so they weren't too close, and I went, and the lady had such disgust. And again, I was too far away to be like, I've got Tourette's, like it's all good. I just said, oh, sorry. But she looked back at me like, and I was like, oh, that's a weird reaction. And I thought, wait a second. She didn't see my lips move. What did she think I did to make that sound? the first thing, you don't think, oh, they've probably got Tourette's. You know, if you hear that noise, it's like, oh, how horrifying. I remember when I was young, I said to my mum, I said, Mum, I want to be in the army. She goes, Seamus, I'm sorry. I don't think they'll take a neurodiverse soldier who has Tourette's. And I was like, oh, I mean, I could probably play in the band and play the drums or play the trumpet. I mean, let's face it, I'm not going to be a sniper, am I? Come in, Seamus. You're the best sniper in the Australian military. We need your steady hands to take out Vladimir Putin and save the rest of the world. Yeah, this is Seamus Evans here, best sniper in the world. Superman, guy, army man. Target in sight. I'll fire when ready. I missed! So there is no cure for Tourette's. No cure at all. Now, at 32 years of age, my cure is humor. My cure is being able to make those jokes. But when I was 10, when I was 12, when I was 13, I hated it. I hated Tourette's. I didn't want it. I didn't ask for it. They were the cards I was dealt with. I remember I would come home and I would have tick fits. I'd flick my head so hard, I'd ruin my voice box, I'd give myself a headache, bang my knees together so hard, I'd give myself bruises. I would get so frustrated. These stupid things that I couldn't control, they made me different to everyone else. And I wanted to be normal. I wanted to be like everyone else, but these stupid things that I couldn't control separated me from the crowd. And I remember at school I had an OCD-related tic, which was a complex tic, which meant if I stubbed one toe, I'd have to stub the other toe at the exact same angle, same pressure. If I bumped one leg, I'd have to bump the other leg at the same spot. Now, when the kids at school found this out, they cornered me in a room and would slap me across the face as hard as they could. Step back and watch as I had to slap the other side of my face and even it out. They'd laugh and they'd do it again. And they were a lot bigger than me, so I couldn't fight my way out of it. That mixed with the comments. When you have Tourette's, it's so visual. You're a sitting duck. Stop doing it, Seamus. You're annoying. Take your medication, weirdo. Seamus, you're a retard. Stop. These comments built up over such a long period. And I remember I would get home and I would just collapse. And I would hate them. And in turn, I would hate myself because I was different and they were a part of me. And I remember distinctly, I would just ball up my angry little fist and I punched myself as hard as I could in the face. That wasn't a tic. It's because I didn't want them. And I hated me because of it. Mixed with ADHD, could not sit still at all, could not concentrate at school. I failed everything. I was always in trouble. Now lucky there are no students in here, but watch out for this because I learned a very valuable technique when I got kicked out of class. Someone said to me, listen, if you get kicked out of class, grab a sheet of paper and walk really quickly, like you're on a mission. Because no one stops you when you're going, all the teachers, they never stop you, and I'd get kicked out all the time, and that's the technique I used to use to stay out of class. I remember my defense mechanism was pretending it was like a giant elephant on my back, and I just pretended it wasn't there. Whenever someone would double take and look at me, I would just look away and ignore it. Whenever someone would ask me questions and say, hey, why did you just do that? I would come up with a funny defense answer and go, I just had a whole bunch of Red Bull, and run away because I didn't want to face the truth. I wanted to be normal. I wanted to fit in. Now, when I was 10, all I wanted to be from the age of 10, everything that I always wanted, I wanted to be on television. I wanted to be like Rove Live, Carl Stefanovic, Koshy. That's all I wanted, right? Now, what television station in their right mind would let a kid who couldn't read or write, couldn't sit still, had Tourette's, ADHD, be on television? Could you imagine? And now we're going to cross live over to Seamus Evans with the weather report. Hi guys, yeah, down here on the Gold Coast. Oh, look, there's a dog. It wasn't going to work. And that's all I ever wanted. When I graduated school, I couldn't read or write properly. I spelt skateboard with a number 8 in it. Now, when I graduated high school, when I finished, first year out of high school, I was lucky enough to get an audition for a kids show called Toasted TV. Does anyone remember Toasted TV? I did this at Mansfield State High this morning and I said, who remembers Toasted TV? And everyone went. And all the teachers were like, me? This was all I ever wanted. This was like getting that pony on Christmas morning or that new pair of shoes. And I got it. And that feeling of satisfaction, I had never succeeded in anything. I was always last in every race. I never got any A's or B's. This was it. I was like, yes! Now remember, I wasn't forthcoming in telling them that I had Tourette syndrome. So about a week into the job, my boss pulled me aside and said, hey, Seamus, why do you keep twitching like that? I said, oh, well, I have Tourette syndrome. Now, why are we afraid of the dark as kids? It's because we don't know what's in it. And that was his reaction. He thought the worst and thought, what have I just done? Hired this kid with Tourette's on television? So I was still under probation and he dangled a little firing carrot and said, listen, if your Tourette's is going to be a problem, well, we can just fire you and we'll get someone else. Right then and there, that heart-sinking moment was like getting a new pair of shoes and someone taking them away before I got a chance to wear them. These stupid things that I didn't want were going to stand in the way of all I ever wanted to be. Now, adversity can either make you a hero or a victim. And I remember I was faced with two decisions. One, just quit. Give up. I'll never be on television. What am I, crazy? I've got Tourette's. Or two, why don't I just go for it? See what happens. What's the worst that can happen? They're going to fire me anyway. Who cares? Let's see how long I can last. So through that, I decided on the ladder. And I had to learn something very important, and that was acceptance. I had to stop running away from the fact that I was different. I had to accept it. Yes, I am different. I have Tourette syndrome. I have ADHD. I failed school. I have poor literacy skills. It's like when your car breaks down, you've got to open up the bonnet to see what's wrong. And I had to stop running away. I had to turn around and I had to face and I had to accept it. And I remember very clearly thinking, I will never let my Tourette's stop me from doing what I want to do. My adversity is not going to stand in the way of my dream and my goals. So I had to learn to control them. I had no idea how to do that. So what I did is I would wake up every morning and I would register, how am I feeling? Am I tired? Am I angry? Am I happy? Am I frustrated? Am I excited? Am I grumpy? And I would register those ticks. And I remember thinking, hang on, how can I scratch that itch without actually scratching it? I wonder if there's another way to scratch it. Now, if I ticked 200 times a day, over 3 months, that's 18,000 ticks. Now, to be a pilot, you only need 10,000 hours. So, in the world of Tourette's, I'm a Qantas international fighter pilot. But I had to get to work. Now, because of that acceptance journey, that radical acceptance, I ended up lasting on television on Toasted TV for 4 years. They were going to fire me after the first week. But I lasted 4 years because of that acceptance. Now, let me tell you, Toasted TV was so much fun. I went all over Australia and I went to all these amazing rural towns and I met interesting characters. I interviewed celebrities like Kermit the Frog, Jason Segel, Kevin James, Guy Sebastian, Ricky Lee. So many really cool people who love Star Wars. I remember I went over to San Francisco where there is ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, which is George Lucas's, the creator of Star Wars, his production company, and we went over there. Now, the rules with George Lucas is no one ever knows when he's going to be there or if he's there unless they see him. They only know when he was there because everybody talks about it. And I was over there with a Scandinavian journalist, and we were waiting for an interview, I can't remember, and my ADHD was kicking off. So I'm in the foyer, and I'm like, and then all of a sudden I see about 20 men in suits, very serious businessmen, and this guy that just looked like George Costanza, very out of place. And I was like, who's that guy? Oh, that's George Lucas in the flesh. And then the Scandinavian journalist goes, look, it's Steven Spielberg. I went over to Lord of the Rings I went over to New Zealand where they made Lord of the Rings, and I held the green suit that Andy Serkis, the actor who plays Gollum, wore, and I was like, my precious. We used to have this segment called Chuck It In, where fans would write in ingredients to put in a blender. And it would be like blue cheese, milk, Tabasco sauce, tuna, chocolate, and a whole chili. Oh, I had just so much fun. Now, through that acceptance journey, I really started to look inside of myself and start to accept not just my Tourette's and my so-called flaws or adversity, but my interests, my likes, my dislikes. And I started to become more confident in who I was. I remember I hate sport. I don't like watching it. I don't like playing it. I don't like it. But do you know how many times I've had to pretend I did like it around my friends at school to fit in? Oh yeah, did you watch that? How was the kick last night? I'll tell you what, that ref. Seamus, it was basketball, mate. Oh, anyway. But you know what? I started to learn, you know what? I don't like sport. Yes, I do like listening to Madonna. I do accept these things. And in that, I became more confident. And in that confidence, I started to get really good at being a TV presenter. So good that the boss of Totally Wild, who remembers that? The producer of Totally Wild tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, Seamus, how do you want to move to Adelaide? We'll give you a pay rise and you can be a reporter for Totally Wild. I was like, that is just like the next Christmas with a pair of boots. Again, I was like, yes! But I failed school. Now, the difference between those two shows was Toasted TV was like colour and movement and fun and improvising. Totally Wild was like a journalist job, but for a kids' TV show. You had to research, you had to write. I spelled skateboard with the number 8. So I was faced with those two problems, those two decisions. Seamus, you can barely read or write, mate. You're 23. Quit, do something else. Or 2, I've come this far. How much further can I go? So I accepted the fact that I had poor literacy skills and I got to work on them because I knew what I wanted. My purpose was to be on television and a television personality. That's what my purpose was, which drove me to educate myself after school. And every night before I went to bed, I would read. I would read so much until my eyes were going to fall out. And I started keeping a journal or writing a diary, anything to exercise that ability to write and tell a story. I would keep short stories, or I would blog or write a movie review that never would get published, just so I could expand on that skill set. I ended up working on Totally Wild for 3 years. 7 years I was on national television. They were going to fire me after the first week because of my adversity, because of my flaw, because of my setback, because of Tourette's. But through that acceptance journey, I lasted 7 years. Now, Totally Wild, wow. Who knows who Jane Goodall is? Jane Goodall, amazing woman. I think in the 70s, she was like 20. She went over to where chimpanzees live and she watched them and analysed them. And up until this point, scientists determined humans from animals because humans used tools, animals didn't. So this 20-year-old girl was like, excuse me, chimpanzees use tools. So you have to change your studies. She literally changed science. Now, I interviewed her and I brought that up and I said, when you discovered this and scientists didn't, were you like, ha ha, I discovered it and you didn't? She looks at me in disgust. No. It's like, oh, welcome to Australia. Oh. I learnt how to catch brown snakes, inland taipans, red belly blacks by hand. It was amazing. Such an adrenaline rush. I held far north Queensland barking tarantulas in my hand. Do you know why they call them a barking tarantula? Because they rub their back legs together and go, it's like they've got Tourette's themselves, the little spiders. A little Tourette arachnid. I held one of those. I'll tell you some truths about Totally Wild and my television experience. I went diving with great white sharks. And this was amazing. This is what I've always wanted to do, right? Now, a week before we went on the trip, the guy called up and said, hey, listen, a pod of killer whales came through and killed 2 great whites. So there are no great white sharks. Do you still want to come? I said, absolutely. Work's paying for it. Now, when we got there, we travelled 3 hours on a boat, got wetsuits, ice cold water go down in the tank. Nothing. Just a couple of fish. I had a story to do. Luckily, Totally Wild had been on for 29 years, and we have mountains of shark vision. Hey guys, welcome to Totally Wild. Oh, we're going to get in that. No worries. Check out how much fun I'm about to have. And just went to Vision from like 10 years ago. There was another one where a good mate of mine, he goes, hey Seamus, you know what they call the collective noun for otters? I said, what? You know how animals all have collective nouns, like flamingo, a flamboyance of flamingos, a murder of crows, a parliament of owls. He said, do you know what the collective noun for otters is? I said, what? It was a business. It's a business of otters. I was like, that's awesome. I'm going to do a story on it. So I put a little suit on, tie, briefcase. Hey guys, welcome to Totally Wild. Today, it's time to get down to business. I'm not talking about sky-high buildings with office politics. I'm talking about a business of otters. Great story. Interviewing the zookeeper. So, how many employees in this business? Hilarious, right? Lots of puns. It was good. Clipped it all up, sent it off. And the producer called me up. Said, hey, Seamus, really great story, mate. Listen, just doing some fact-checking. It's not actually called a business. It's called a bevy. Turns out my friend was just playing a prank. He goes, listen, just take that out and it's a great story. I'm wearing a suit with a briefcase and a tie. Like, how am I going to cut that out? Now, thankfully, the producer went on holidays the next day. So I just let it through. So there's a whole generation of kids walking around going, hey, Mum, you know, it's a business of otters. Don't believe everything you hear on television. Who wants to see my time on TV? That career, that 7 years, never, ever would have happened if I quit at that beginning. If I stopped, if I let my adversity get in the way, I never would have had that amazing, amazing opportunity in that 7 years of my life. Now, how many ticks did we count at the beginning? Do you remember? 16. How many did you see? Now, that video is up on YouTube. I've got a YouTube channel, right? And I've uploaded that, and it's got 2,000 views. And I've watched it 1,999 times. So I know exactly how many ticks I did. 1. What I'm going to do, I'm going to stand here. We got to 20, right? No, we got to... Very good. I'm going to stand here. Now, I need... What's your name, miss? You just turned around like that to say me? Joanne. can you please, when I say go, count to 20 seconds in your head, all right? And when you get to the end, go, stop. Got it? Everybody else, I want you to watch me, and instead of counting collectively, count in your head. Watch me and see how many ticks you think you see. Can we do that? Yes. Very good. Okay. I threw an obvious one in there just for the sake of it. Now, just yell it out. How many did you see? 5, 6, 3. Okay. You got 4? All right. I'm going to run through them with you. The first thing I did was tense my stomach, rolled my stomach, tensed my left butt cheek, my right butt cheek, both of my butt cheeks, my left thigh, my right thigh, my calf, pressed my heels together, slightly flicked the wrist. I put my tongue to the roof of my mouth and then to the bottom of my mouth. I went over here and went, which was completely unrelated and had nothing to do with anything. What I had to learn to do was slowly, over time, like Play-Doh, stretching, exploring the tics. And in doing that, I was able to redirect them from those large, obvious movements to more discreet, less visual movements, disguised into my body language, so I could be on television and it not be noticed. And this one, I used to do it all the time in an interview. So, Guy Sebastian, how did you come up with this song? Oh, okay. Nice. And I just find little things like sleight of the hand, like slipping it in there. But that was only possible through accepting it and working on it. And I knew my purpose. I had a reason to keep going. And let me tell you, it's frustrating, it's annoying because it's constant management. Constantly registering, I've got a new tick. How can I redirect it? Oh, there's another tick. If you do that 200 to 300 to 400 times a day, it can be incredibly tiring. But I had a purpose. I had a reason. If you know your why, you will be able to withstand any how. And I knew my why. I knew my purpose. So I had to be resilient and keep going. Every time I would get frustrated, annoyed, no, I can't do anything else. This is all I can do. So I need to learn this. Now, what happened after that acceptance journey? I discovered something else, a passion. I really looked inside myself, and I love television. Television was so much fun. But after a period of time, I went, you know what? I was listening to the breakfast radio every time I'd drive up Mount Cootha to get to the Channel 10. Every morning I'd listen to the breakfast radio show. And I was like, I want to be one of them. So at 25, I think it was, I quit my job in Adelaide, packed my little car, drove to Melbourne to be the next Kyle Sandilands. That's what I wanted. That was it. Now, this is very important that I tell you. From 18 to 25, I was on national television. And this was before the rise of Netflix and YouTube. You only had 3 free-to-air channels, and I was one of them. I experienced a little bit of fame. I would get stopped in the streets. I would get photos of me, sign autographs. Never had to line up to any nightclubs. Now, at 25, if the first formative years of your early 20s, late teens, was being treated like that, my ego was massive. I thought so highly of myself, and I was arrogant. I thought, mate, I've been on TV. I'll be able to get a radio job like that. Guess what happened when I went to Melbourne? Nobody cared. And I had a very harsh reality check. Every phone call I made to the big executives of radio, hung up on. Every email I sent, never got responded to. Every metaphorical door I knocked on, slammed in my face. And as a result, I slipped into depression. I became highly anxious. What have I done? And I completely crumbled. This was the first time in my career that I had faced such extreme rejection. I was glorified on television and then was promoted to another TV show. But this was the first time I got a taste of reality. And I fell into this horrible depression where I couldn't get out of bed. I'd wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I'd lay in bed all day until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was so hard. My brain started playing tricks on me. Hey, Seamus, you suck. You will never make it. You cannot work on radio. You don't deserve this. You're not even funny. You failed school. You've got Tourette's, remember? All these things, my brain started playing. Hey, Seamus, just give up. Give up. Quit. But I had to learn resilience. I had to learn determination. This was all I ever wanted. This was it. And I needed that purpose. My purpose was to be an entertainer, to be on that radio show. That was my drive. And I had to learn resilience. Resilience is your ability to get back to step one after being knocked backwards. Resilience is your ability to get back up after being knocked back down. Resilience is your ability to get back to normal after a difficult situation. But why get up if you've got no reason to get back up? You have to have a purpose. You have to have a why. You have to have a reason. If you want to go from here to Sydney and you don't have the destination in mind, well then you're just going to get lost in all the twists and turns. But if you go on a long distance drive and you have an end destination in mind, you'll be able to get there, and through those twists and turns you will find your way. My purpose was television. My purpose was radio, to entertain, to be on that job. That's what I wanted. So I had to combat my brain. I had to fight those negative words, those negative sayings. And I had to get out of bed. I had to beat this mental health problem. I had to learn to build myself back up, but without the ego, without the arrogance. And so I did everything in my power to feel better about myself so I could get rejected again and again and again and get back up and try over and over. So the first thing I did was I saw a psychologist. If anyone ever experiences any mental health problems, see a medical professional, see a psychologist. And that's what I did. I also learned how to meditate, and I do this still to this day. I walk. I just clear my mind. I don't listen to anything, and I talk. So I look completely crazy. And I talk everything out. I talk meetings that I want to have, pictures of projects that I want to do. I practice this keynote as I walk in public. I had to learn how to pull everything out of my brain and lay it out. And I started what's called a gratitude journal. Does anyone know what that is? A gratitude journal is where you write down at least 3 things that you're grateful for. I am grateful for my parents. I am grateful that it's not raining. I am grateful that I had such an amazing opportunity and a career at such a young age. It could be anything. It could be surface level or it could be really deep. It doesn't matter. I just had to find that grateful. I had to find something that I was grateful for. And then I had to keep going because I needed to combat that negative self-talk. You suck. You're not funny. You don't deserve it. So I would do what's called a message to your inner child. Has anyone heard of this? This is where you literally write down messages. Everybody has an inner child. Doesn't matter how tough you think you are, everybody has that inner child. And I would write messages to it. Seamus, you are funny. Seamus, you do deserve this. You will be successful. Seamus, you are enough. I would have to do these things to combat my brain. And every time I would hear, Seamus, just quit. Just quit. I would have to say, just one more day. Get through today. Let's quit tomorrow, but we'll get through today. And then it would grow to, hey, just quit. And I say, oh, I've got a few things coming up. Why don't we quit this at the end of this week, right? Like get through this week. And I'd constantly, this negotiation. And I was poor. I ended up working as a Casanova at Nova 100 in Melbourne. And I would drive the trucks around and hand out icy cold cans of Coke. And I remember they didn't pay very much. But my mate who I was living with, he was an engineer. And so every night he's having pizza, burgers, Thai, Indian. And I'm sitting there with mashed potato and a tin of tuna because it was $3 in total. I'm like, gee, why did I quit my job? But I had to keep going. I had to learn that resilience. I'm going to tell you a story about my father. My father did an experiment on tomatoes. Have you heard of the theory that if you speak to your plants, they grow quicker? My father wanted to test this out, and so he cut 5 tomatoes in half. And he put one half of the tomatoes in one bag and wrote, good. And he put 5 of the halves of the tomatoes in the other bag and wrote, bad. And for 2 weeks, about 10 times a day, he would walk past them and he'd pick up the ones that said bad. You suck. No one wants to eat you. You're disgusting. I hate you. And the ones that said good, you're the most beautiful little tomatoes. Oh, you're so beautiful. Yes, you are. Would you? And he would say things of love and hate. After 2 weeks of doing this, the ones that said good were amazing, beautiful, ripe, juicy. Could have eaten them. The ones that said bad were moldy, disgusting, rotten, falling apart. It was wet and full of disgusting gases. Now, if that's what happens after 2 weeks to tomatoes, imagine what's happening to you and how you speak to yourself. So I had to learn to speak to myself positively and with love. Now, after 8 months of that struggle, I was this close to running out of money. And I remember saying, that's it. It's coming up to Christmas. I'm going to go back home to Brisbane with the family and I'm done. I'm not coming back. This is it. And then I got a phone call from the Hit Network in Albury-Wodonga. It said, Seamus, how do you want to host the breakfast show in Albury-Wodonga for the Hit Network? Yeah! It was like waking up Christmas morning and getting a pair of amazing stilettos again. This was it. That time of struggle was over because I didn't quit. I didn't stop. I kept going. Just that one more step. Just that one more day. Now, for 2 years, I worked in Albury-Wodonga, and oh my gosh, it was so amazing. I loved working in breakfast radio. I was interviewing celebrities again. I would get up early, 4 a.m. And I remember in Albury, it's freezing. Anyone live in Albury? Anyone from Albury? Hey, I remember I'd get up at 4 a.m. in winter. It was ice. My face was burning. And I remember I had to get up a little bit earlier to wait for the windscreen to defrost. And sometimes I would allow myself a sleep in. And I remember going, geez, I've got to open up the station and go on air in 5 minutes. So I did the Ace Ventura style and wound down the window and drove with my head out the window. I had so much fun. I loved it. And what happened is, the good thing about ADHD, right, is you can do something, you can get obsessed into your little world and you can hyper-focus and you get bloody good at whatever it is that you're hyper-focusing on and obsessed with. For example, when I was on Totally Wild, I would hyper-focus on an animal and I would research it all day. And by the time it came to film that story, I knew more than the zookeeper about the animal. And the same thing applied with radio. I became obsessed and I would listen to every radio station across the country all day. I would consume. I would reach out to bosses and say, hey, can you listen to this piece of audio I did today? Can you give me some feedback? And I would write down notes and became obsessed. And over that 2 years, again, I started growing and getting better to the point where the boss of Hit Network in Cairns, that one person over there, Cairns is quite a party place, as you can tell. I mean, imagine the 60s party tonight with that person. They called me up and said, Seamus, how do you want a promotion? We'll give you a pay rise and move up to Cairns and host a breakfast radio show. Yes! This time it was like getting a pair of, what's a really expensive pair of shoes? Huh? Golden Goose. Imagine. That's what it was for me, getting Cairns. It was amazing. I loved it. 2 years. And I developed a passion for stand-up comedy. And let me tell you, that person knows Cairns is fun. It's a party town. It's a tourist town. Everything's open till midnight. I fell in love with stand-up comedy and I would do stand-up. Are they partying right at the moment? I fell in love with stand-up comedy, and I'd be out 4 nights a week doing stand-up. I'd be partying on the weekends, waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning, having 4 hours sleep every night. It was amazing. And then, I don't know if you'll understand this is like radio jargon. Something happened around the world called COVID-19. Have you heard of it? And they sent an email around. Now, I'm just going to break down the fourth wall for radio for you at this point. So what happens is they send you regionally, and then you climb up to different cities that have larger populations until you're in a metro city, right? And at this point, I was pitching radio night shows to the bosses of Triple M and the Hit Network. I wanted to be a night show across the country, and I was pitching to the big bosses, and I got an email. I said, Seamus, confidential meeting tomorrow morning at 10:30. I said, yes, this is the Gold Coast. I've got it. The very next line was, feel free to bring a support person. I had the meeting and they said, hey, tomorrow's your last show. Pack your bags, you're out. 14 years my career lasted. They were going to fire me after that first week because I had Tourette Syndrome. Through that acceptance journey, discovering that passion, being confident in myself, learning resilience, and being determined, I lasted 14 years. And then, I will tell you, I'm not going to lie, it was actually a bit of a blessing in disguise because I was burning the candle at both ends and I was absolutely cooked. So I was actually relieved because I want to tell you a story about my cat, right? So I had this cat named Brandy, or Puss Puss. And she was very funny. She'd hide under the couch and you'd walk past and she'd go, ah, Puss Puss. Or I thought it got a little bit weird and inappropriate. So I thought she was a bit weird because I'd be at the fridge, open up, what's for dinner? And there's the cat. I'm like, there's something wrong with the cat. It's hitting on me. And I remember we'd go for walks with the dog, me and my mum, and we'd be walking the dog and we'd turn around. 20 meters behind us, the cat was there. Oh, I'm not following you. No, I just happened to be walking here too. You're just ahead of me. Here's my bum. Whoa, weirdo. But I remember distinctly I was about 14. And I had to go to school and it was cold, it was drizzly, I had high socks, big leather shoes that were like that much too big for me, the hand-me-downs from my brother, a big heavy bag, a tie, a blazer. I did not want to go to school, I hated school. And I just remember looking at my cat and she was on the inside going, and I looked at her and I was like, you bitch. You don't have to go to school. You don't have to do anything. You've got no care in the world. And I got a job straight out of high school into Toasted TV. And that gap I had between television and radio, it was quite busy trying to get another job and dealing with my mental health. So for that 14 years, I never stopped. Straight into it. I never had a break. And I watched all of my mates go to uni. And to an outsider looking in, I was like, you guys do nothing. I was like, I wanted to do that. I've always wanted to be my cat. And when COVID-19 hit, I moved back to mum and dad's in Salisbury in Brisbane, got on the dole, and became my cat. Oh, it was amazing. I would wake up whenever I wanted. I'd watch 4 movies in one day. I'd go out on a Wednesday. Because I could. It was the best. I stopped. I finally stopped. And what that did is it gave me time to reflect and think and analyze and look back over my career. Look back over my adversity, those flaws, those challenges I faced. And I remember looking back at them going, you know what? Yeah, they were hard times, but over that acceptance, passion, and determination journey, they weren't challenges. They weren't setbacks. They were just something I had to manage. And I remember thinking, well, what is it that I want to do now? I've had an amazing career. I've worked my ass off to get it. What now? I thought, you know what? I think I want to go into schools and share my story because I desperately wanted, when I was 12, 13, 14, I desperately wanted someone like me to come into the school and say, hey, it's okay to be different. You are enough. You are capable of more than what society is telling you. Go for it. If I can, you can. So I did. And I worked out that, you know what? My ADHD, that wasn't a setback. That was actually a strength. You know what? My Tourette's, it's actually a strength. Because I was able to live with it, it was actually a little alarm bell every time I got stressed. Every time I got frustrated, fatigued, or whatever, because that would be a trigger for tics. I would feel stressed, fatigued, or whatever, anxious. So I'd be, what's happening? Oh, that's right, I didn't sleep properly last night. Oh, that's right, I'm really stressed about this upcoming thing. It was actually like a little alarm bell. It became a strength to use to my advantage. And over that acceptance, passion, and determination, it wasn't a flaw, but it was a superpower. And now, all these years later, that stupid, annoying setback, adversity, flaw, these things I couldn't control, the things that I hated because they made me different, I now love because they make me different. There is no cure, but if there was, I would not take it. I am now an ambassador for Tourette Syndrome Association Australia, and I give this talk all over the country. Not to say, look at what I did, but to say, look at what you can do. Through accepting who you are as a person, discovering a passion, and becoming absolutely resilient, you can impact your life so greatly. That elephant years ago that I had on my back, I've heard a famous quote by the name of a man named Desmond Tutu, and it was, "How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time." In life, we are faced with those elephants. We are faced with adversity, that difficult period, and we think to ourselves, we can't do that. We can't overcome that. This is too hard. One bite at a time. One day at a time. One more step forward. Not quitting, not giving up. You will eat that elephant. If you give up, it is guaranteed that it'll never happen. And if I gave up that first week, I never would have had the amazing career that I did. Now, I want to show you a picture. Steve, number 2. This is at a school that I delivered my talk to last year. And I found out the story about this yellow hat. That hat is 15 years old and it's got writing all inside of it. It's disgusting. It's never been washed. That is not a part of the school uniform. What happened about 15 years ago, a kid just started it. He got that yellow brim hat, he put the school crest on it, and he started wearing it. And the reason being is that student felt out of place. That student felt he was not academic and he was not athletic. So he was a square peg in a round hole. And he thought to himself, well, if I'm not athletic and if I'm not an academic, well, what am I? And he discovered very quickly, and he accepted that he was different, and he discovered his passion very quickly was, you know what, I don't belong on the sporting field, I belong on the sidelines, cheering on my best mates as they play the other schools. That's my place. So he took it upon himself to get that hat from Lowe's or whatever it was, put the school crest on it and wore it. And every game he was determined. He was determined, and he was at every single game that school played. And he'd start leading them in chants. Come on, you can do it. Whatever the school song was. And then the next week or two went by and there were more students that gathered around. After they finished their sporting team, he grew a little crowd. And by the end of the year, so many students would gather. And he would start leading them in school chants, the war cry, everything. A giant crowd would form. And what happened is he took his hat off, wrote his name, and gave it to a student in year 11 at the end of the year and said, this is yours now. And so for the whole year, that grade 11er did it when he was in year 12. And then it came to the end. He took it off, gave it to another student. And then it got passed down again. And then again. And then again. 15 years. It is not determined by the teachers. It is only determined by the students. Now, there's a plaque dedicated to each student who ever wore that hat. In 2007, the first student was me. It says my name, Seamus Evans. And the reason why I share this story now is, again, not to say, hey, look at what I did at my old school, but to say, look at what you can do. Look at the power that you have. Failed every subject, was in the worst team of every sporting event. Now there's a plaque, a legacy, a tradition, a culture that surrounds that hat. It's now split into two, and it's now a glorified role. I say, look at what you can do. If you look inside of yourself and you accept yourself for who you are, you become confident in yourself, discover your passion, and you chase it with absolute determination. Build those resilience, overcome your adversity. You will not only change your life, but you will impact the lives of others and the people around you and your community far greater than you ever thought was possible. Now, at the end of my talk, I get everybody up. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, we're going to turn a floor into a... What do you reckon it'll be? Dance floor. Someone's ready to get loose. You and the cans person up there. Okay, we're going to say, we're going to turn a floor into a... Superpower. Very good. You've been listening. Those three people who answered. All right. I want full-blown enthusiasm. I want that confidence. I want that acceptance. I want that determination, that resilience. We are going to turn a floor into a... That was weak. I'm not going to lie. We're going to do it again. I want hands in the air. I want everybody to go... Everyone, we are going to turn a floor into a... One more. You can do it. You've got a little bit more in you. We are going to turn a floor into a... Very good. Sitting down. Before I leave, I just want to say, in life, you are not in control of the cards you are dealt with, but you are in control of how you play that hand. Adversity creates a victim or a hero. That is up to you. Your adversity doesn't go away. You are never in control of what happens to you, but you are in control of how you react. You are in control of how you deal with it. And I encourage all of you to accept, find a passion, become determined, turn a flaw into a superpower, and eat that elephant. My name is Seamus Evans. Thank you guys so much. You've been amazing.